But yeah, thank you so much. And all right, so am I good to get started?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Let's see. All right.
March 12th, 2020. I just got home. Putting on my own clothes felt so surreal, almost unnatural. I remember stepping out into the light and feeling like I was born again. It was disorienting, but I found my way as soon as I saw my family. I hugged my sister and I cried because I missed being in her arms. I missed seeing their faces. I thought this day would never come. Oftentimes I sat on my bunk in the fetal position, imagining that my life would go on like this forever. But here I am. I'm with my family, I'm eating real food, I'm seeing my cat Goose again, and I'm sitting in my own bed. I just checked my email and found out I got into Georgia State University. I'm surprised. I thought they would reject me like KSU did and I'd be scrambling to find an education. I feel like things are falling into place. March 13th, 2020.
What was Joe?
I saw my grandma today.
Were there any fights?
We all went out to lunch to celebrate
Did
me
you
coming home.
meet anyone in the gang?
The restaurant was really empty for
Did you get into
Friday.
any
It could be
fights?
because of the coronavirus thing everyone's been talking about.
Hook up with anyone?
I'm settling in okay. My
What
family
was
asked
Joe
me
like?
stories about jail,
Were there
and
any
I tell them the
fights?
funny ones, like
Did
how
you
I
meet anyone
officiated
in
a
the
wedding.
gang?
I don't tell them the
Did you
bad
get into any
ones, like
fights?
how someone died and another woman was assaulted right in front of me. I don't tell them that I didn't
What was
sleep at
Joe
night
like?
and that I cried so hard that
Were
my
there
jaw
any
is still
fights?
sore.
Did you
I hope
meet
that
anyone
because
in
I'm
the
home,
gang?
everything will go back to normal,
Did you get
click
into
into
any
place, and
fights?
I'll feel like me again.
Did you like?
I want myself
hook up?
back.
What was Joe
March
like?
16th,
Were there
2020.
any fights?
My old friend Eric from high
Did
school
you
came
meet
over.
anyone in the gang?
His birthday was March
Did
1st,
you get
and
into
he
any
was wondering why I
fights?
didn't send him a happy birthday text.
Did you like? Hook up with
I don't want
anyone?
to tell him I went to jail, so I said I
was
forgot, and
Joe
he got
like?
upset with me.
Were there
He
any
thinks I don't
fights?
care about him.
Did you
I would
meet
rather
anyone
him
in the
think that than
gang?
know I went to jail.
Did you get into
Is
any
that crazy?
fights?
March 20th,
Did you
2020.
Hook up?
I went to the doctor today and found out I have tuberculosis. It's latent, but I'm scared. If I get coronavirus with TB, will that be too much for my respiratory system to handle? Could I die? I have to get labs, which will cost a few $100s, along with the 9 months of antibiotics and follow-up doctor's
Did
visits.
you meet anyone in the gang?
My doctor says I'll test positive for TB for the rest of my life because I was exposed to it. March 28th, 2020. Today I took my mental health and substance abuse evaluation for my special conditions of probation. They have to be turned in 1 month after release or I'll go back to jail.
Did you meet anyone?
They found that I don't have a substance abuse problem and my mental health is fine. Why wouldn't it be? I'm free from that hellhole. April 13th, 2020. I've been out 1 month and a day. I'm so happy, but I live in constant fear of going back. I've never felt more fear than I have there. I still see it in my nightmares. I wake up relieved it was a dream, but terrified it could be a reality. I hate this feeling of impending doom. I think it's making me physically ill. Something's wrong, mentally and physically. I want to cry all the time. I always feel on the verge of tears, like a swelling wave that never crashes. My whole body feels drained and overcharged. I'm so tired, but I can't sleep. I'm always hungry. I can't stop eating, but I'm insecure about my weight. I can feel depression creeping up on me, but I don't know why. I should feel lucky. I do feel lucky. I'm so grateful to be with my family and Goose and to have food and a bed, but there's this foreign and familiar feeling taking over me. Maybe I'm sick.
Were there any fights?
I hope this feeling passes soon. It could be depression. I don't know. April 15th, 2020. I had a bad meeting with my probation officer, and now I'm crying in my bed out of fear and hatred and this overwhelming feeling that I'm trapped with nowhere to go. What happened seems so stupid on the outside, but to me it feels like a death sentence. My PO and I met over Google Meets because there are no in-person meetings due to the pandemic. I was nice and polite, and I tried to make it seem like I wasn't going to be a burden or whatever. Then my video cut out. I was still talking to him, but I was getting an unstable Wi-Fi connection. I tried to tell him this, then my audio cut out. My heart dropped. He left the call and immediately texted me that I wasn't taking probation seriously, that I needed to do better with the implied or else. I ran downstairs where my family was cooking happily in the kitchen, and I erupted in tears. I leaned against the fridge because I was crying so hard I couldn't support my own weight. I blubbered out an explanation as to why I was crying, and they said, "But it's not your fault, the internet is spotty." But it is. Everything is my fault. If my PO loses my paperwork, then they'll say I never turned it in. They mail me something and the post office loses it, then they'll say I purposely didn't respond. Everything is my fault. They couldn't calm me down. I ended up writhing in my bed and tearing at my hair for half an hour, waiting for the doorbell to ring, for my PO to tell me that my freedom has run dry and that they're taking me back to my worst nightmare. April 23rd, 2020. My sister Sam and I got into a big fight today. It was over shampoo and conditioner, if you can believe it. Basically, Sam wanted to use my stuff and I said no. I said no for a lot of reasons. One, because she constantly steals my clothes. Even when I was in jail, she stole clothes from me. Two, and I know this sounds crazy, but for some reason I've got it in my head that when the shampoo and conditioner runs out of that bottle, I'll have to go back to jail. So if Sam uses it, I'll be in trouble. I can't explain this to her because it sounds crazy, so I just took the bottles out of the shower before she could use them. She got mad and screamed at me and said that I'm a spoiled brat. And then I got angry and yelled at her for not visiting me in jail and going to see her boyfriend instead. Then she grabbed her keys and left. April 29th, 2020. I saw my dad today for the first time in a year. He still doesn't know I went to jail. Dinner was awkward. Part of me desperately seeks his validation. I don't want him to see me as just some felon. I'm more than that. Eye contact with him felt weird, but then again, eye contact with anyone has not felt natural in a long time. But this was severely foreign, distinct but unrecognizable. I had to encourage myself to do it, to look in his eyes. Why couldn't I? Was it shame? The entire ride home was a mental retreat. I don't know how else to describe it other than that because I literally retreated deep into some dark corner of my mind. I've been doing that a lot, for a while too. It makes me sad, but also is mostly the only place I'm happy. Removed from the present, conversing in some made-up situation during which I can finally unleash everything I've been holding back on an individual who's willing to listen. Sad, I know. The monologues in my head are more akin to ceaseless rants. Yet here I am, in my silence, refusing to speak about the sickness in my mind even to the $100 an hour therapist. Am I crazy? May 17th, 2020. I'm putting a scrapbook together. I'm looking back at all the old photos and all I can think of is how life must have been like before everything went to shit. What was life like when the world saw me as innocent and not a criminal? What was life like before I saw things that plagued my dreams and warped them into nightmares? What was life like when I couldn't constantly grapple with the fear of the rug being ripped out from beneath me by my PO or a police officer or anyone involved in the system? What was life like when I didn't feel like I was losing my grip on sanity? Seeing everything my family did while I was incarcerated and on house arrest. Seeing my twin sister do all the things I could have done if I hadn't screwed my life up. Going to prom, graduating with friends, moving into my first college dorm. I feel like her reflection, but a sad, dark version of her. May 24th, 2020. I don't know if you can classify where I'm at and what I'm feeling in this moment as full-blown depression, because I'm not sad all the time. I'm only sad most of the time. And that's the big distinction between mild and severe depression, right? It's just these moments at night when I'm alone usually and my mind is given a breathing second to wander. I try not to let it wander anymore for this very reason. During these lonely, waning evenings, I begin to feel choked, literally choked by my lungs, and my thoughts and my surroundings. Like swallowing a Xanax, except I'm the Xanax. And I've noticed that night, no, the evening, just before the sun sets, I'll decide to walk my dogs, as some attempt to outrun the ensuing darkness. I've also noticed how I sleep like a baby when the hallway light is on, how I'll turn a light on in a room even if it's already illuminated by the sun streaming in from the windows. And I didn't truly know why until it hit me today. I spent so much time in the darkness mentally, I could no longer stand to be in it physically. I guess I thought literal darkness might pull me back into figurative darkness. Either that or I'm just a loser who's scared of the dark. Who knows? May 31st, 2020. The month of July is close. I'm scared. Can you imagine being scared of an entire month? I feel dramatic about it, sort of, but that month haunts me. I just wonder if something bad will happen like the last 3 Julys. July is when I meet with my probation officer. I've done nothing wrong, so I don't know why I'm freaking out so much. I'm just traumatized from these few months. The nightmares are horrible and I'm always unsettled. I live in never-ending fear. fear of going back for something stupid. Not even a crime, but tardiness or forgetting to turn in a form. Normal, stupid, human things, not criminal things. My anxiety is insatiable and relentless, and I don't know why. It's like everything is a trigger. It's like my brain doesn't work right anymore. I can't function. All because of this overwhelming fear. I wish my mind would stop fixating on it. I want the intrusive thoughts to stop. I want the nightmares to stop. I want the fear to stop. I want it all to stop. It's suffocating me. I don't know how to work past it. I don't know how to move on. I need help. I need this thought to stop looming over me. Sometimes I can't take it. June 11th, 2020. My nightmares are getting worse and more frequent. I wake up in agony, mostly because the dream is about violating probation or being in jail and not being able to leave, and I can feel my body suffocating and tensing in real life as these thoughts drag me into the depths of my greatest horror come to life. And this one message keeps playing in my head. One day you won't wake up from this nightmare. You'll be living in it. And I want to scream. Being there messed me up in unimaginable ways. I wonder if I'll ever be okay again. I think I'll be scared for the next couple of years, or a decade at least. Let's hope I can overcome it. June 15th, 2020. Every time I look at the clock, it says 12:29 p.m. Every time I walk outside, I tell myself they're okay 3 times. Every time I hear a siren, I stop until it goes away, so I know it's not coming for me. I can never stop on the numbers 2, 5, or 7. They're evil, and the television can never be on the volume number 16. Am I allowed to write this down? These habits are the only way I stay in control. The only way I protect myself from a system that wants to break me. I can't sleep with my hands or ankles too close together because I'm scared that someone will try to shackle me like they did in jail. I can't throw out my tube of toothpaste even though it's been empty for 2 months because if I do, they'll send me back. I can't talk to new people because what if the government planted them there to get me in trouble? They just want to watch me until I mess up so they can send me back to jail. I know I'm right. I'm right about all of it. June 29th, 2020. Today I met with my probation officer to discuss the progress I'm making. I've completed all of my special conditions except for the risk reduction course and the restitution, which hasn't been set yet. Every time I get on a call with him, my heart stops beating. I hold my breath just waiting for him to tell me that I've messed up. July 5th, 2020. 2 years ago today, my best friend was fatally injured. 2 years ago today, I was arrested. I'm not equipped to handle this anniversary. I'm crumbling mentally. I'm saddled with uncertainty and fear and more. And now I have crippling anxiety and borderline institution-worthy OCD. I pay far too much attention to numbers for it to be even remotely healthy. At this point, I'm aware of how problematic it is and choose to deflect these actions into a different dimension of myself. It's not like I'm not trying to get better because I am, but everything I do feels like a distraction. My words feel misplaced, my actions feel out of step, my whole being feels fake, not mine, not anyone's, just there. Waiting in vain for some revelation, some enlightenment, a moment, a reprieve. July 19th, 2020. Sometime in the future, I fear this journal may be used as some sort of evidence proving the increasing instability of my mental state. July 20th, 2020. I feel violated, I feel screwed up, I feel strangled by my own thoughts. I feel prepared to be consumed by this perpetual state of impending doom. I feel distant, I feel foreign, I feel fat, I feel unloved, I feel cluttered. I feel like I could say a million words or none and it would make no difference. I guess that's, what is that, inconsequential? Yeah, I feel inconsequential. July 21st, 2020. Today my probation officer called me claiming that we never had our 90-day check-in. I told him we had, but he didn't believe me. I had no proof, only he had the video recording of our meeting. I was on hold for 5 painstaking and breathless minutes before he said he found the recording. He never apologized, never acknowledged that his still mistake could have cost me 16 years of my life. July 25th, 2020. I refuse to go outside because what if a government vehicle drives by my house? What then? I turned my phone on Do Not Disturb because the sounds of phones ringing awaken a rage and a fear inside me that I cannot control. What if my probation officer is calling to tell me I fucked up? What if I get taken away from my family again? What if I lose my education and freedom and everything just in the world because of some stupid mistake? My mom keeps saying I haven't made a mistake, but I always feel wrong. I always feel like I've messed up. July 27th, 2020. I was finally broken. I could feel it building up for weeks. First the strange eating habits, then the nightmares, then I stopped exercising. Then I lost my ability to focus. It was all gradually building up and I pretended not to notice. I made comments, I stayed up late crying. My nervous habits got worse and I told no one, not even my therapist. I just pretended that I was okay. Today I cried for about 6 or 7 hours. Through sobs, I begged my mom to take me to a mental institution because I want to kill myself. Anything to make it all stop. But we can't afford it. I scheduled an emergency meeting with my therapist at 5 this evening. She said I'm blowing my fears way out of proportion because of my PTSD. I mostly just kept repeating that I wanted help. I needed help. I needed to not feel like this. So I'm going on medication. I'm not really right in the head. Dr. Laura said it was only a matter of time before I broke down. Now I can't walk because my head is pounding from all the crying. I'm just hurt. I want to feel normal. I don't want to live in fear. That's all. July 29th, 2020. Today I was prescribed antipsychotics. I guess this just confirms what I knew all along. I'm crazy. Hopefully this will stop the paranoia, the panic. July 30th, 2020. Today the Henry County Sheriff's called me looking for a woman with a warrant out for her arrest. My heart stopped. The moment I knew was coming. Then they said the name Mary. I'm not married. Who the fuck is Mary? The woman who had my phone number before me. That's who the fuck is Mary. A phone number that hasn't been updated on her license. August 2nd, 2020. Today my sister got home from her birthday dinner and asked why there were 2 cop cars in our neighborhood. I immediately freaked out. I walked outside, looked around frantically, and sat around twitching and fidgeting inconsolably until I randomly got up around 2 miles at my quickest speed this summer. I hear sirens all the time. I feel phone calls. I have all these triggers relating to the police. And in a world of mass surveillance, militarized police, and a shitty justice system, I'll never be able to take a deep breath. I'll just be a mess of PTSD until my brain is normal again or I'm sedated. How do I cope with this? Will I be okay? I'm okay. I'm okay. August 8th, 2020. My brain feels suspended in the air. I'm so scared. I started binge eating again. I'm not taking care of myself. My hair is greasy, my skin is sick with blemishes. I'm coated in stink and there's dirt caked in my nails and I don't know where it's from. I'm glad to be home. I'm glad I can go outside anytime I want. I'm glad I can talk to my mom and sisters and grandma at any hour for any length for free. I'm glad I can do laundry and have clean clothes that I know. I'm thankful I'm here. So thankful I can't express it in any measurable way. August 25th, 2020. Today an officer from your probation office called to say one of my community service forms was missing and I need to resend it. August 27th, 2018, I went to jail for 24 hours for non-compliance. The 27th is 2 days away. 2 is a bad number and it's on a Thursday. Thursday is a bad day. Everything bad happens on Thursday. How deeply should I look into these connections? I'm having an anxiety attack. I don't know if it's a manifestation or if I'm psychic or this is simply routine and I'm just a nervous freak for no reason. I just want everything to be okay. Please be okay. August 27th, 2020. When I was a junior in high school, I took a chemistry class. I can't remember what my teacher's name was, but I remember him telling us this. Don't mix bleach with ammonia. Something about acidicizing your lungs or suffocating you or something that sounds horrible. Well, it used to sound horrible, but what I'm hearing in my head is worse. I'm sitting in the bathtub. I'm crying because I know my mom is going to find my body. I hold a water bottle mixed with both household cleaning products and I put my nose to the lid and inhale. Nothing happens. I try again, but this time I inhale deeper. August 28th, 2020. Sometimes when I cry really hard, my jaw aches. Yesterday I could feel this ache throb and pervade through my bones to my brain. Last night I crawled into my mom's arms and sobbed. I begged for medicine and for mercy. At 7 I spent an hour crying on the spot where less than a day ago I tried to take my life. But instead of a suicide attempt, I called my therapist. At 8:30 I explained the depth of my suffering to my mom the best I could. Around 9 or 10 I felt a soaring, looming emptiness. Like I was trapped in this mind, on this earth. It gnawed at me. I sat on the couch, watching the people on TV, with antipsychotic pills sitting in my pocket each time I shifted. I woke my mom up and I cried helplessly. I felt like a child as she held me, and I wished I was a kid again. A scared teenage girl who still needs her mother just as much as a toddler did. She said something that clicked. Don't let your fears take your life from you. I don't want to give the gift of my youth over to crippling anxiety and irrational thoughts. This is my goal. My focus is on seizing opportunities, being grateful, and improving myself. September 2nd, 2020. Today I made my bold stroke. It was scary and embarrassing and invigorating. Today I went to an acting class. After 3 hours, I officially signed up. There were a lot of police patrolling Atlanta and it put me on edge, but today was a win. Yes, I was anxious. Yes, my PTSD was triggered, but I did something new. I want to hang on to this feeling. October 13th, 2020. I'm not hungry. I can't sleep. What is my body telling me? There's so many thoughts swirling around in my head, but as soon as I grab hold of one, it melts in my hands. Like a kid with ice cream on a Georgia summer. Sometimes I'm the kid, sometimes I'm the ice cream. October 19th, 2020. This weekend, I was the lead in my first short film, The Left Road. It was exciting. I had to get a travel permit because it was in North Carolina, but the fear was worth it. I've been watching season 6 of Blackish for weeks out of fear that if I watch any other TV show, some life-shattering experience will occur. But now I feel like taking a brave leap. I'm switching to Netflix. I'm saying goodbye to season 6 of Blackish. Wish me luck. October 21st, 2020. I'm taking the steps to improve my anxiety. I know I must give it time to work. I've started running again. I'm sleeping more. I'm trying to eat better. But I'm still scared. Today I dragged my mom outside close to tears because I thought I heard sirens outside her door. I could have sworn they were there. Let's look at the positives though. My grades are good. I'm making some friends. I'm working on some cool projects. I just need to focus on these positives. January 1st, 2021. 5 minutes ago, the clock struck 12 and we entered 2021. In 3 days, I turn 20 and leave my teens behind. I'm not sure how I feel about all of this. There's a small fire in me. It's burning and spreading. This is the part of me that wants to grab this year, this decade, and thrive. I want to create, I want to be healthy, I want to grow. I'm not at some fancy party, my phone isn't getting blown up with texts, but that's okay. I'm not going to let the system take any more of my life from me. I promise myself I won't. This year's going to be different. Yes, I'll be scared, but it won't control me. I can do this. January 5th, 2021. I turned my phone off Do Not Disturb. I still jump every time it rings, but I don't contemplate suicide at the sheer sound of it. I don't hide when I hear sirens. I slow down or pause, but I don't hide anymore. I feel like I'm conquering my anxiety piece by piece. I feel like there's hope.
All right. So that was I guess my experience working through post incarceration syndrome. It's still something that I kind of have to monitor every day, but it's getting better the more removed I am from the system. So yeah, I wanted to open up the floor for questions, or if anyone, because sometimes when I share stuff like this, a lot of people find that they relate to things even if they weren't system impacted. Like there are certain things that they feel trigger them in very similar ways. And yeah, so I just wanted to open up the floor for like questions or comments. I would love to hear like your stories. And yeah, so thank you.
I have a question.
Hello, Abby.
Oh,
Go ahead.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Okay. My question is, how are you continuously working through your anxiety and knowing that having that trauma, how do you continuously every day put a step forward? And then how do you not be fearful when there's days that you step back?
Yeah. So it's actually, that's a good question. So there are things I do. Part of why I was having such a hard time was because I was really isolated. I got out in March 2020. So I went in December, everything was pretty normal. And then I got out and there was like a pandemic going on and we didn't have TVs in the facility that I was at. So all I was hearing from my mom was like, she was trying not to panic me. So she make me panic. So she was like, oh, it's not a big deal. And then I got out and like people were wearing masks and there was like a state of emergency and I was like, what the heck? And so school wasn't in person. I couldn't hang out with friends. So I felt very alone. And then I started volunteering for nonprofit organizations that introduced me to people who have been system impacted. And so it was really great to hear people who would be like, oh yeah, like I had these horrible nightmares. And I thought I was crazy because I would wake up sometimes like sweating and like crying because I was just so scared that my dream would essentially be that I was in jail and I couldn't get out. And other people were like, oh, I was having that dream too. And I was like, oh my gosh, thank God. So I think part of it was knowing that I wasn't alone in this, and then having a support system and building up that support system. There are days that are really hard. Last night, for example, I was pulled over by a cop, and I was sitting in the front seat and I just completely disassociated from everything. And I was just sitting there trying not to cry because the person I was with I've only known them for a week. So I didn't want to just have this like complete breakdown in front of this essential stranger. So I was just sitting there and I was thinking of everything that could go wrong, but I was thinking of everything that could go right as well. And eventually he just let my friend off with like a warning, or the guy or whatever with a warning. And I was like, thank God. But it's times like those where I feel so stuck because we do live in a place that's like very surveilled, and we live in a place where there's so many police officers that I feel like I can never get a second to breathe, just because it's just too much. So when someone is system impacted, if they have a criminal record, or even members of like the Black and Latino community, like I feel like there's so much trauma even if they don't have a record, just having to interact with the police and knowing that like the police aren't on their side. And so I mean that's part of the reason why I support, abolition, because why are we spending billions, almost trillions of dollars to traumatize our community? So yeah.
Thank you.
And then I think
so. My name's Ruben. Yeah. So my name's Ruben Radillo. Abby, thank you for that. I appreciate that. And I did 25 years, but I did a total of 32, right? And what you described, what you shared with us today, is absolutely totally real, because I had been in prison twice before this 25-year sentence. The last two times that I came out, I heard those sirens. I heard everything that you put in place. I was like, damn, that was my norm, And this time before I came out, and it was about the same time that you came out. I didn't want to come out. I had a meeting with my clinician, and I cried to him, and I told him, hey man, how can you kind of like move my date forward, man? I don't want to come out. I feel afraid, because I knew what I was going to face. I like, man, I don't want to go out to that world, the world that you was describing in your thing. I'm like, man, I ain't got nothing going out there for me, and so I was afraid of that post-traumatic. I never heard that term, So when I seen it on the schedule, I was like, wow, I want to hear what that's about, So one of the things I want to do is commend you for your braveness to share that with us, And the depression, the thoughts of suicide. I went through all that, And I just want to say that, man, I just got so much to say about it, And I just want to say thank you for sharing that with us, and if I'm gonna gather my thoughts and then share some more, but right now I'm just like absorbing everything that you shared. So
thank you so much for sharing. Are there any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I had a question. And first off, I want to say thank you for sharing this work with us. I have a formerly incarcerated family member, and just seeing this really helps me empathize and understand some things that I will never personally be able to understand. And I think that you did a really beautiful job of telling your story. And I was asking, how do you plan to like put this out into the world? Because I think more people should see this film. And what are your plans for the future with this project?
I haven't thought that far. I speak at universities sometimes, so I was thinking of just like sharing the link. But I do think it's really important for people to see not only this project, but there are like so much art is being created by people who are formerly incarcerated. And the one thing I get a lot is someone will be like, oh, criminals are this or criminals are that. And I'm like, well, I'm a criminal. Am I that or this? And they're like, well, no, you're a good one. And I'm like, well, there's so many good criminals out there. You just haven't gotten the time to meet them and talk to them. So I do want to share this. I'll probably share it to YouTube or something. But one thing that I talk about all the time is how the world for like decades saw the Batman movie and we're like, oh my gosh, Batman is like a superhero and he's so great and the Joker sucks and we hate him and he does all this bad stuff. And then they came out with the Joker movie and you see all this stuff like why the Joker's messed up, why he does what he does, and you kind of start to feel for him. And that's exactly how it is with like the police and with criminals or people who have been convicted or charged with a crime. We see the government side of the story, the police side of the story, but we don't see what brought them to commit that crime. We just see this is what happened, and and it's lacking so much empathy, and it's not going to get us anywhere if we just continue to be like, oh my gosh, someone sold drugs, that's horrible, like, and we don't understand like maybe they didn't have any other option. Maybe there were systems in place, the systems in America that are in place that were preventing them from, choosing a better route. So yeah, I do hope to probably post this on YouTube or something now.
This is Cynthia. I thought it was extremely well done and extremely powerful. I mean, it was hard to talk. I had a process afterwards. And I'm a filmmaker, and the way you use sound was so creative. It was, those layers of sound, and then, but, in prison, there's constant sound. So I thinking that probably, informed you in doing this. And I do see that, a need for people to know what people experience when they come out. And the feelings they feel, and I think this could be used in that way. The other is, what motivated you to make this beautiful, very deep piece?
Yeah, so I had a really bad breakdown last July. There were a lot of things that were happening. My probation officers kept losing my paperwork and then blaming it on me. So I was being threatened. So essentially, if I violate my probation, I have to go to prison. I could go to prison for 16 and a half years because I'm a first offender. So they kept carelessly losing my paperwork, forgetting that we had check-ins, doing all these things. And then I was put in a really, really bad situation by one of my probation officers. And I had to make a really tough choice, and it just got to the point where I couldn't take it anymore. And then I was seeing cop cars would drive through my neighborhood and I never knew why, and I always thought they were coming for me. And then I talk about it in the video how I would get like a random call from like the sheriff's office, and they were like, there's a warrant out for this woman's arrest. And I was like, my arrest? And so it was just all these things kept building up and building up on top of the isolation, on top of so many other things. And I felt like I couldn't talk about it with my family members because I sounded legit crazy. And I know I sounded so crazy. Like, I talk about in the video how I wouldn't let my sister use those shampoo and conditioner bottles because if I thought if the shampoo and conditioner ran out, that my freedom would run out. And that's obviously a sign of obsessive compulsive disorder. I still have those shampoo and conditioner bottles in my shower right now. Like, I'm too scared to throw them out. So yeah, it's just, I I felt inspired to make this video. I guess I got to this point because I needed to express kind of I guess Georgia spends $1 billion a year on state prisons. So I just wanted to express that they're spending $1 billion a year to drive people to the brink of insanity, is essentially the point I'm trying to get across. So it's called a correctional facility, but it broke me. So I guess that was kind of what I was trying to illustrate.
Well, you're also a very good filmmaker, so I would encourage you to continue.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Jesse, you had a question?
Yes, I would love to hear you speak to how obviously your journaling process was the primary text. I'm curious about how you made decisions about what to include and how you decided in the first place to use your journal as the text, the words, and then how you'd made decisions about it.
Yeah. So when I got out, when I was in jail, I wrote every single day. So I got out and I didn't want to write every single day, but I write letters to my friend who passed away. She actually, essentially, I was driving and there was an accident and she passed away. And so I still write to her to this day and just tell her about how life's going. So part of them were letters letters to her. Part of it were letters to this woman that I met in jail who I ended up being really good friends with. And then part of it was just me getting thoughts onto paper. So I chose, essentially, I wanted to illustrate a few main points, and that was like the things that were triggering me, what I did the unhealthy things I did to cope with those triggers. So things like telling myself I'm okay, and I still do this and I'm trying to not do it anymore. But like when I walk to the mailbox, I'll tell myself you're okay 3 times, and then I'll open my mailbox because I'm scared if I open it and I don't say anything, that there will be a letter from my probation officer for like non-compliance or something. So I just kind of wanted to illustrate as almost as quickly as I could, but also like not just like hitting only main points, things that were like troublesome. Like I talk about my relationship with my dad, which was very strenuous, and I hadn't talked to him for a year. He still doesn't know I went to jail, and I've been out for like 16 months, I think. So yeah, I wanted to choose like things that made me seem normal. So it's kind of normal to fight with your siblings. And then in that fight with my sibling, you also see how my PTSD is manifesting in I'm not letting her use my shampoo because she always uses my stuff. But I'm also not letting her use my shampoo because I'm scared if she uses it, I'll go to jail. So I wanted to illustrate like the normalcy and like the kind of craziness of what I was going through.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Do we have any more questions or comments or anything?
I have a quick question. I was just wondering how you feel the act of, creating this work and putting your thoughts, out there, really voicing them in this video affected you or, changed any of those thoughts in any way, or maybe not.
Yeah. I thought stupidly that like exposure would help. So I was like, oh, if I just hear sirens, like I won't be as scared of them anymore. But I would be sitting editing this video like at my desk or whatever, and I could feel my heart rate just skyrocket. And even like I had a part with the walkie-talkie, like it was things like that just kind of reminded me, and like the keys jingling. So at first it was really, really difficult, and it continued to be difficult the entire time, but I felt good just being able to say like,
yeah, I kind of lost it for a little bit, but I got it back. And here's how, I guess, and you know, through community and just trying to express myself in a bunch of different ways. So it was really difficult. I'm glad I did it, partly because I feel like the more you bare your soul to people, like I just feel like the more free you are yourself. So I spent a lot of time, I always say this, but like when I was released physically, I felt like I wasn't released mentally. And this was part of helping me being released mentally. So yeah, I think that, I guess that's how it affected me. Sorry, I was reading comments. Are there any other questions or comments? Or if, I guess if anyone could relate to anything you saw, I'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, I just experienced something traumatic medically. And so I was constantly in the bed for like weeks, months. And it was a flare up that like they don't know what's going on or anything. And just hearing your story of like the constant, I can't walk outside without being scared that I'm going to hurt myself, or that if the sun's going to hit me, well, I have to be back in the bed, and that type of thing. And I think it's interesting, like the little things that scare you that like no one would think. Like I keep certain things in the house just in case something happens. And that's why I asked you about how do you continuously work through that trauma, because I'll have really good days where I'm like, yeah, I'm outside, I'm moving, my body's meant to move, my body's meant to be around people. And that's the thing, you want to, there's certain times where I wanted to like break down in front of friends just because I'm so anxious, or like, did I take this medicine right? Did I do this? Did I do this? And then there's some days where I'm like, there's some days where I'm top of the world. And then the other days I'm like, uh-oh, I'm going back into the trauma. And I just want to know how you released, like, that's why I was like, I want to know how you release yourself from that mental prison, because you're constantly physically released from that experience, but you're mentally still there.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's so true for a lot of people. And one thing that I've learned, because I am majoring in theater, is our teacher told us the more specific you get, the more people will relate to it. And I was like, that's weird. Who's going to relate to the fact that I'm scared of like these three very specific numbers? But then people, I was like telling someone about it and they're like, oh yeah, I have a number that I'm scared of too. Like I can't put my TV volume on it. I can't put my phone, like I can't do anything with that number. And I was like, that's so weird. Like I didn't know like other people felt that way. So I tried to get as specific as possible with this. And I feel like it's so true that, you know, sometimes we get out of a situation and we just, part of us will always feel like we're still there.
Yeah.
Basking in the silence.
I was just thinking there was so much sound, and now there's sort of like
yeah,
and I think I think that people that I know I am, so I can't speak for others, but I'm just sitting here just thinking and thinking about you know, your film, and but there was so much to it, and there was so much to digest. So
yeah,
and there was so much sound. So almost sitting here in silence is It's like calming us down.
Yeah, it does. It gets to a climactic part. There was actually like when I talk about thinking and attempting suicide, I took a little break because I wanted to like the sounds to kind of absorb. And then when I immediately get in like back into the sounds like randomly, I would like be editing it and rewatching it, and it would scare me every time. And because I just always felt so alarming and like it came out of nowhere. But yeah, silence is something I'm really coming to enjoy, especially after it's felt so loud for so long. On top of what you took away from the video, how do you think that it would be, I guess, how do you think you could, I guess we collectively could go about creating empathy for people who are system impacted?
So can I say something real quick?
Yeah.
So I think you are creating it, you know. I think just by this, by letting formerly incarcerated individuals know that, you know, that everyone's human, you know. Like when I was hearing your story, I was like, wow, I thought it only happened to guys like me who grew up in South Central LA, you know. So when I was looking at your video, I was like, wow, man, you know, she's going through the same stuff that I went through, and she went through a small portion, you know. So I think you're doing a great job. I think just by educating, that's fine as well, you know. You're doing a great job. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Anastasia. Yeah, I'm kind of just piggybacking off of what Ruben said. You are doing a great job, and it's through art pieces like these and like so many in this conference that empathy is created. But I guess my question to add on to your question is like, how do we get these pieces to more audiences that aren't specifically looking for work on the topic of abolition, yeah. but just people? Because when I first tuned into your piece, it was actually about halfway through, and I was like, oh, this is like noise music, like this is like from another world that I take part in. I'm a sound artist, and it's an aesthetic and a vibe on top of having all this incredible content in it. It's something that I know people who don't necessarily engage with political art would be drawn to because of how it looks, sounds, and feels, and then would experience this work and start to think about the content and have that open up inside of them. So I guess just my question for everyone is who's like working in an organizing capacity is like, how do we get this work out there, out of the Zoom room and into a film festival or other types of venues where people are gathering to watch and discuss work? That's all.
I can just give you briefly, I have a film, I'm a filmmaker, and it takes a lot of work. I'm showing 10 minutes of something later one today called In Her Shoes. And it just takes a lot of organizing and a lot of work and calling people, getting people to call you back. It does take money because, I mean, you know, you have to pay yourself, you have to pay your rent, but it's trying to find partners that will then present it in community situations around dialogue. I don't find film festivals do that, so I no longer really go to film festivals. But if there's some good dialogue afterwards and call to action, and you're struggling, and Abby, that's one of the things that I'm struggling with is what is the call to action? You know, is it legislators do you get involved with a group that changes laws, or a lobby group? I mean, lobbyists, but it just takes a lot of research and a lot of work to find those people who will showcase your film and have dialogues around it and really get the word out in a meaningful way.
Yeah.
So you can't do it yourself. It has to be with partners. So I would love to know if somebody else has some other ideas.
I like that, Jesse. I agree with the whole. My friend and I had this like mini idea of like hashtag normalized felons, because I feel like a lot of people see us as like these zoo creatures. Like when I meet people and I'm like, oh, I'm a felon, they're like, what the heck? And like they have all these really sometimes offensive questions about what it means. It's like I'm not even from this earth anymore. So I feel like normalization is very, very important. And yeah, one idea that I had about getting this to other audiences is I actually have a meeting with the sheriff of the Cobb County Jail, which is the facility that I was at. I called up the Cobb County Board of Commissioners and I was like, this is all the stuff. Like, we didn't have clean drinking water. Our clothes were covered in blood. Our food was often inedible. We had a lot of issues that were like very bad. So I called the chairwoman of the county and I was like, y'all, this is what's going on. So I set up a meeting with them. And one of my ideas was to have people who are being trained to be sheriffs and police officers speak to someone who's formerly incarcerated, have them come into the academy and be like, this is my experience. I'm a person. We're very similar. We're both humans, so that when they do go into the field, they're not seeing them as like 5-year-olds or animals or all these horrible things that they called us. So yeah, I'm hoping that's one way. I mean, that's a very specific audience, but there are so many other people who still, even like my close friends still are just like, oh, gang members and criminals are doing all these bad things. And I'm like, you don't really know what you're talking about. And those are the audiences I would love to reach. And if anyone has ideas on how to reach them, that would be great. Oh yeah, I actually work at an art gallery, so that could be an interesting fit.
What art gallery?
Atlanta Contemporary. Yeah, they're cool. But yeah, so I guess if anyone has final thoughts, I would love to hear from you guys.
Yeah, I think that I'm going to go away thinking a lot more about this question of how to make this work available, to people, and put it in. I think sometimes about putting work by system impacted people in other people's ways, yeah. So that they stumble across it, and it's just a part of the arts and culture scene that they experience. So it becomes more normal, and it becomes more, hopefully, normalized that people who have been in prison, people who are otherwise system impacted, are in your culture or in your spaces. It's a proximate thing, right? So I'm just really interested in, in a lot of cities we're seeing some little film series or art, smaller scale art festivals that might be good matches. I think it's just so important that people get the experience that you've shared is so, as you said, very relatable and also so specific, and I think it's a tremendous piece, and one that more people should see. So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. You guys are awesome. Thank you. But I guess, Alden, are we ready to wrap up? Thank you.
Sure. If that's all we've got for today, thank you, Abby, for being here with us and for sharing your work, your very, very important work. I hope that we can continue this dialogue of getting it out into the world moving forward. And before we go, I just want to say that if you learned something new today, or if today's session challenged you or taught you something new, we really encourage you to support the Justice Arts Coalition if you can by making a donation, because funds received during this convening will be put towards compensation for presenters, prioritizing increased honorariums for carceral system impacted presenters. So I'll be sending that link in the chat, as well as our open space link, so that you can check out those open space sessions that will be going on for the rest of today. And thank you all for being here, and I hope that you enjoy the rest of the convening.
Thank you, Abby.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Keep making films.
Thank you so much.